Welcome back. We've been showing you where to find clients and how to get clients. In this video, it's important to understand how to connect with them and what to say to them once you've connected. You'll learn how to make connections much faster and much more effectively. The amazing thing about LinkedIn is that it allows you to connect one-on-one with nearly anyone in the world, as long as as long as they're on LinkedIn, of course. But so many people waste such a great opportunity by sending a brief or automated message, that doesn't really give people any meaningful reasons, to connect. For example, basically the "I'd like to connect with you" LinkedIn message is what 90% of people are using out there. It's pretty lazy, it's unprofessional, it's highly unlikely to get a response. The trick is, forging those connections successfully is by giving a better introduction. Let's talk about LinkedIn connections. You're aiming for what LinkedIn calls first-degree connections. They're the people you're directly connected to because they've accepted your invitation or you've accepted theirs. Second-degree connections are people on LinkedIn who are connected to your first degrees. Third degrees are connected to your second degrees. If you have over 500 plus first degree connections, LinkedIn says you are potentially connected to more than 13 million people. Each of your connections has a connection, and these numbers can grow exponentially. But LinkedIn connections are only meaningful if you turn them into real relationships, because you're looking for people seeking job opportunities. One of the most effective ways to communicate with them is if you have a friend connected to them. So why would you want to request a LinkedIn introduction? Well, there are, several reasons. In our case, we're trying to connect with job seekers, both active and passive, that need our help. Right now, they're cold leads, but we're going to turn them into warm leads. Other basic reasons, well, you might be eager to reconnect with a colleague from a year ago or a couple of years ago. Or you could be trying to ask someone for an informational interview at a company where you'd like to work. But there are a couple of ways you need to know about requesting an introduction that LinkedIn doesn't really mention in its step-by-step guides. The further removed you are from the person you want to be introduced to, the harder it is to get an introduction. If you want to connect with someone you already know, that's easy. Just search for the person on LinkedIn, select them, click on the choice saying, how you know that person, with their colleague, classmate, business colleagues. Include a personal note and send an invitation. Do that instead of using the wording LinkedIn has selected as a default. I always recommend replacing that default with a personal note. Again, in the resource section, we've provided, the LinkedIn icebreakers and other messages that you can use to help you in that regard. Your chances of getting declined increases when you use the default message. So, you've got to learn how to be more personal with your messages. Getting introduced by a friend. One important note, never recommend requesting an introduction to someone who is in the third degree connection. Let me give you a quick example of what I mean. I hope you can follow this because it's quite critical to making successful connections on LinkedIn. So you're on LinkedIn, say you need to be introduced to Peter, but you don't know him personally. You're not connected. You're not like a first degree connection. You're not friends. You're not classmates. However, you have a first degree connection to Niles. Niles has a first degree connection with Sarah, which means you have a second degree connection with Sarah. And Sarah has a second degree connection with Peter. That means Peter is a third degree connection from you. The two of you don't have a mutual contact in common. Now, here's where things get difficult. Since Peter is not directly connected to Niles, he can't make the introduction for you. Instead, he must forward your request to Sarah. In an ideal world, Peter will add a compelling note to Sarah about why she'd want to introduce you to Niles, even though she probably doesn't know you. You can see, however, that there are multiple places where this introduction request can get, stopped cold. Peter might not know Sarah well enough to forward your request. Peter might not be able to persuade Sarah to help you out. Sarah might not know Niles well enough to make the introduction. Okay, so bottom line, I don't recommend requesting an introduction to someone who is a third degree connection. Now, I know that was a bit convoluted, but I just wanted to give a real life example of why we shouldn't waste our time with a third degree connection. We should only go for the second degree connection, build it up from there. So just keep your request to second degree connections where you and the person you'd like to be introduced to have someone in common. These are the steps to ask a secondary degree contact to make an introduction on your behalf. Locate the LinkedIn profile of the person you want to be introduced to. Click Get Introduced on the right side of that profile. Look through the second degree shared connections that LinkedIn says could introduce you to that person. Click on one of those connections and enter a subject for your message. Write a message to the person who you hope will make the introduction. Okay, let's actually go through it so you can see it for yourself. Okay, step 1, use the Get Introduced function on the profile of the person you'd like to meet. Okay, this is one of my first connections, but he has 2 people that I believe will really benefit from my service, but they're second connections. Let's look at some of the people I mean. As you can see, most of these people are second connections. Choose one of these connections to introduce you and using the automated LinkedIn form. So I would need to message Gibbons first and get him to introduce me to Singh. When you select that person's name, they will pop up into a center box between you and the person you want to meet. Click on the Get Introduced. In this case, we're trying to ask Gibbons to introduce us to Jatinder. Try to avoid, subject lines like, can you introduce me to X, or need an introduction, or connection needed, okay? Use something much more personal. Sometimes you'll make a request from someone you don't know at all. In such case, remind them of how you met, what other connections you have in common, or mention a group you have in common where you've noticed them make comments. The person you're requesting the introduction from will forward this on. Usually they'll add a quick, cover to the other person. You can find examples of other sample letters in the resource section. If you don't hear back from the person in a week, simply send them a quick, just following up note. Okay, one follow up is sufficient. If they don't respond, you've done what you can. Sometimes it works out. Sometimes you need to move on to the next one on your list. Now, a professional aspect of connecting is to follow up and let others know the rest of the story. No matter what happens when asking for a LinkedIn introduction, be professional, appreciative, and positive. No matter what happens, a nice thank you always helps. So let's talk about crafting your message. The key to a successful introduction message is being able to write, killer copy. But it's important that you're polite as well when you're writing your messages. LinkedIn says that the way to write an effective message is by stating your intent. Be clear about why you're asking for the introduction. While I think this is good advice, I have 4 more suggestions to increase your chances of getting accepted when you send out your first introduction message. First thing is to increase your chances of success. You have to create an intriguing subject line. Subject lines determine whether messages in a crowded inbox gets opened. You really want you really want your message to be opened. You want your messages to be known. You want your messages to be read. So you've got to make it personal. Add some humor if it fits into your personality. Let me just give you some examples. You'll see some of these in the resource section as well. So as you can see, the first one, I'm John, we met at X event, or I'm John, I liked your latest blog on, you're being specific. Don't skip this. These are the types of messages you want to use to get that sort of response. You should never assume your contact will just click on over to your profile to learn about you or see how you're connected. Be proactive and respectful of other people's time and write a quick intro. Be as specific as possible about why you're asking for the introduction. Talk about why connecting to the particular person can help you reach your goals and why you decided to ask the person who's receiving your request. Try to be gracious. Soften any sort of deadlines you may have with the wording. It would be really helpful to me if you could provide your response by a certain time, but be soft in that. Don't push on the date. People respond to an invitation more than a demand. If you're demanding something, people, tend to not to feel good about that. So, you want to be respectful of other people's time. So let's talk about the in-mail. LinkedIn also gives you the opportunity to communicate with people that you have absolutely no connection with. Okay, like we talked about the third-degree connection. LinkedIn gives you the opportunity to, connect with them. However, this is a paid option. What I like about this option, though, is that you only pay if you get a reply. So that's really good. LinkedIn gives you the opportunity to chat to 15 people a month using email. You may be able to get more if you go for the upgrade. My advice, only use this email option if you have completely exhausted all other ways of connecting and messaging. And if you truly believe that these 50, you've identified a few people that you felt, could be your potential clients. Earlier in the year, I used LinkedIn email to ask for a total stranger for professional advice. Even when using email feature, always personalize the message. Never just say hello. That would be a waste of a first impression. Get to know why you're writing. Try to keep it short. People are time crunched and you can lose their interest just as quickly as you got it. Keep this in mind as you craft your second paragraph, the meat of your message. Quickly dive into why you're writing. Just to be connected doesn't count. Why do you want to be connected? Do you love this person's updates or products? Do you want to book him to speak at an event or invite her to guest post on your site? Do you want to ask this person questions about the company or the background? Wrap it up and always say thank you. The last two lines of the messages are your closing moment. So you want to be gracious. You want to be. You also want to make sure it's clear what you're asking for. So in summary, you've learned the importance of an effective introduction. You know where to go to get an introduction, and you know how to introduce someone using LinkedIn's tools. Like I said, you'll find scripts for introductions in the resource area. Make sure you make use of those. So what you want to do in terms of a task, you want to practice knowing exactly how to do the introductions on LinkedIn. Just get familiar with that, because going forward in the future, I do see you using these introductions, especially if you're using some of the samples we have in the resource section. You want to, take advantage of those. You also want to modify them as well. We've given you basic blueprints in basic sample templates. You also want to modify them according to your language and how you speak online. Let's switch over now to being a super connector. So what is a super connector? My definition of a super connector are the movers and shakers in and out of your network. But according to the author Keith Ferrazzi, super connectors are people who maintain contacts with thousands of people in many different worlds and know them well enough to give them a call. For me, headhunters, lobbyists, fundraisers, public relations people, journalists are the best super connectors, because it's their job to know everyone, so they seem to have that skill. They're the people making high-level connections, building empires with a simple introduction. Look, you're not going to be a super connector overnight. It does take time, but becoming a super connector will help open up a new world of opportunity. So if you're a career coach or a recruiter, a sales professional, or you have your own business, being a super connector is a skill you must develop. I want you to make the effort today, and you'll see the benefits for years to come. Okay, if you want to be a LinkedIn super connector, then consider some of the following. Introduce people in LinkedIn. Keep it simple, never complicated. Always start out to help others. This is one of the best ways to get recognized and get connected on LinkedIn. Always give value. I'm sure you've heard it said many times, but let me ask you a question. How often do you give value? How often have you given value that you felt was great? Throughout this course, when I talk about giving value and making a difference in someone's life, I really want you guys to always have that at the top of your mind, because we're dealing with people's careers that affect their health and their family, which equates to happiness. Always have that at the top of your mind, okay? In the resource section, especially in the education phase, you'll find ebook and videos to educate your prospects about everything to do with careers. This is the part where you'll be giving away quality graphics, PowerPoint slides, and videos to help your prospects along the way. So the importance of contacts old and new. Now, even if you've reached 500 plus connections, status on LinkedIn, you shouldn't underestimate the value of the people you do know. It's not known about just the people in high places. At least not yet. It's about the people you know now. We're talking about your colleagues. Your colleagues have so many deep connections, your peers, your friends and family. As careers evolve, many of your friends, your family, will land in new positions and they will announce these new positions. It means they're higher up in the hierarchy within their company. So here is another example of where you can be a super connector and go connect with such people because you're keeping track of them. So in summary, you've learned about being a super connector. It's, going to take time to get there, but at this stage, patience is needed. Apply what you've learned today. Use the sectors, the stuff that you have within the resource area, and you shouldn't do too badly. So let's just talk about action that you need to take. Just a reminder to review the LinkedIn icebreakers, because I truly believe if you're going to be successful in this business, you do need those types of blueprints. You want to practice as much as you can. Jot down anything that you've kind of learned that you believe you can apply, and ask questions. Ask questions of people. So that's it for this video, and I'll see you on the next one.